Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey. I'm here with friends to talk about women's professional road cycling. Gracie Elvin.
Hi friends. I need to change it up from my usual hello. So hi friends.
And Loren Rowney.
I'm not as original as Gracie. Hello everyone. G'day.
I like the g'day.
You gotta have some Aussie in the podcast. We're half an Aussie podcast. 2/3 of an Aussie podcast.
I never say g'day in real life, so I feel like inauthentic saying it like this, but I like it when Loren says it because it actually sounds good from her.
Today we're going to talk about the latest transfers, a bit of Chongming Island and Tour of Guangxi, and a little bit of a season wrap-up. We're going to do a bigger episode on the season as a whole in a month or so when we've had some time to digest, really think about everything that we got to see and kind of, look back, get some listener questions. Love listener questions. So if anyone has any questions on the season, you can throw them at us for a future episode. But today we're gonna have a loose episode. We're gonna be loose and just see what happens. The latest transfers, we've got 2 new signings for Canyon SRAM. Wilma Antilla, who's coming over from Lotto Destiny, Finnish rider. A pretty interesting signing there. And Maria Martins, the Portuguese rider. So 2 relatively unknown signings going to Canyon SRAM. And I think if there is a team that has proven that they are a good place for young and up and coming riders to go, it's Canyon SRAM after, what they were able to do with Antonia Niedermeyer and Ricarda Bauernfeind. I think it will be interesting to see how they utilize these 2 women.
That's well said. I think Canyon SRAM is a fantastic team at doing really good things with, in quotations, random riders. Quite often and I've seen it through the years, quite often there'll be a rider who has shown a lot of talent somewhere in the year. I guess they've got their data probably and then can see the potential that is there. It just needs to be nurtured. So yeah, I'm curious about the track rider and what she's going to do out on the road. I think we discussed this last week that now that we're out of that Olympic cycle, the first couple of years after the Olympics, you really see the track riders come back to the road in full force and do really cool things.
Yeah, Maria Martins, she's 25 from Portugal. She rides for technically Phoenix de Koenig, or she did in the past, but she primarily raced on the track this year. I mean, she only raced on the track this year, which is not usually we'll see like even the top track riders kind of do both, but this year she really focused on the track. But she's done some impressive things in the past, both on the track and on the road. So she's one I think that is going to be a really interesting one to watch for Canyon SRAM.
It's also cool, like, I guess this is a broader theme of like, it's cool to see how teams can evolve and how they can rewrite what they want to be known for. And like I mentioned last week, Canyon SRAM back in the day when it was Lululemon Specialized, that was kind of that was the dream team. That was the Trek of the times, or the SD Works even of the times. And then they were like this super team time trial team, and that was cool. And it's kind of like all teams. It's kind of like this mural that gets slowly painted over the years until it's a new picture. And I like that. Canyon SRAM's slowly evolving. Although looking at some of these names, they could probably still do very well if we had a team time trial at the Worlds.
Agreed. So what would SD Works Pro Times mural be? Has it changed much?
It's definitely been lots to talk about. So that's been good. Instead of maybe a robotic winning team, it's been a bit more less predictable, even though they've still been winning. So definitely adding a bit of the human element to it, I guess.
It's been a chaotic season for them. But you're right about Specialized Lululemon. Oh my gosh. When I was editing the episode and listening to us talk about that, I was just thinking about how cool that team was back in the day. The kit, the social media, like they really had it all dialed. They had the social media dialed before teams really knew that you had to have your social media dialed. Other new signings, we've got 2 new signings for AG Insurance Sudal worth talking about. Gladys Verhulst Wield will go over from FDJ. And this one is really interesting, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about it. Alexandra Manley from Livalula Jaco to AG Insurance Sudal. We don't often see Aussies leaving the kind of Mitchelton, Scott, Green Edge team to go elsewhere. The most notable one is definitely Grace Brown. But for Alexandra Manley, so kind of fresh in her road career. Obviously, she's been around for a bit, but she's not been on the team for a long time. To kind of make this move into a Belgian team, I find it quite fascinating.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear this actually. I think it's brave to get out of that comfort zone of Jaco. And I've probably said this a couple of times over the years. I wish I'd done the same. It's nothing against the team, but it's just important to refresh yourself. And we've seen some top riders do that over the years. Anna Meek was such a good example. She had such a great innings at Green Edge, but she knew that when she was ready to move on. And then she just had that great end of her career at Canyon. And I think that reinvigorated her. Coming to Green Edge in the first place reinvigorated her, and she knew she needed that shake up again. And so much like Grace Brown in more recent years as well, to have moved on from Green Edge, it's nothing to do with the support or the environment. I think it's just that you want to maybe have a change of scenery, or maybe you can see that you're not getting the best out of yourself there anymore. Every rider's going to fit in differently into different teams, and I think that's such a great thing to recognize in yourself when it's time to move on. And I think Alex is going to, be so refreshed in this new squad. It's such an exciting up and coming team that's already doing so well. She's got some awesome teammates around her to bounce off. She's such a talented bike rider. And I think maybe she gets lost a bit in Jaco sometimes. It's going to be the first time she's been separated from her bestie in Georgia Baker. And I think they're going to probably go head to head now in a few sprints, which is going to be pretty cool, but maybe not so fun for them. But I think Alex has got so much left in her, and I think she can get some really good results. And I think this team is such a great next place for her.
Do you think she's going to have another crack at the LA track? Because that's kind of what I was thinking too, because I know a lot of the Aussie track riders have tended to be on Green Edge because they really support that program. Not to say other teams don't, but historically with that team, a lot of the Aussie track riders have gone there. I wonder if she's wondering to just fully focus now on the road.
Well, I think she should focus on the road, but of course that the lure to those Olympic medals is so strong. So I wouldn't be surprised if she goes around again to the Olympics on the track, but she's so good on the road. I'd really loved her to put at least another 2 years completely into the road and see what she can really get out of that, if not longer. But yeah, I think in the past you saw a lot of Aussies who were track riders going to Jaco because they had that really nice joint agreement, and those track riders would go for track camps and not do as much road racing. They'd get a bit of a salary. Sometimes they actually didn't get a salary from the pro team. They were only getting paid from the Aussie Federation. And then I think that flipped, and now they're getting paid well as road riders and probably not getting that much from our federation. But I think looking at other countries, Australia used to be such a strong nation on the track, and we still are, but it's a lot harder now to be competitive because so many other nations have also put a lot of resources into their track riders. But it's also very common now for those endurance riders to mostly just do road racing or road kilometers. And some of the most successful track riders are actually mostly pro roadies, and they are so strong. It's almost like the game's changed a little bit. The physiology, the training is different. And the way the Aussie Federation has done it is they've actually pushed their track endurance riders to do way more road. So it's kind of like, well, you don't really need to be on Green Edge now anymore because that's kind of just how they're doing it, how everyone's doing it. So you can go into any team.
I think she's got, 2 good years to do the road easy. And then if she wants to go for LA, that's, a conversation she can have with the team in 2 years. It's like, because of the 4-year blocks in between Olympic cycles, and that the track focus really swings towards those Olympic cycles, it gives her a great opportunity for the next 2 years to be on a road specific team and really focus on the road with AG Insurance Soudal and yeah, like get out of her comfort zone by being in a Belgian team with a totally new crop of riders. Will be great for her.
Yeah, I think she's going to work so well with Yolin. I mean, they had that 1 year as teammates, I suppose, but it looks like they're building a really good team, as in the staff team at AG Insurance Soudal. So I'm excited for her. And I did see actually last week that Jean Bates is going back to be the women's director of Liv Alula Jago, which I thought was quite interesting.
He was one of our main DSs for a number of years. He got a job over in the men's team, did that for another few years, and then decided to move the family back to Australia. But now he's coming back to Europe. So I'm sure that team's really happy to have him back. And alongside that news, in the same article, they announced that Jess Allen was going to go full-time DSing with the squad as well. So she did a little bit of DSing with the development team this year. She also looked after our Aussie under-19 riders for a block in Europe, which they were super lucky to have her. And she dabbled in some other media stuff too. So she's had a great first year out of retiring to try a bunch of stuff. And I'm glad that the Green Edge outfit can see the value in her and giving her that job as a DS.
Does that mean the other two DSs, Sean and I can't remember the woman's name, are staying on? Do you have any idea, Abby?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Sean is staying. The last I heard, but I can ask him.
I think those two are staying on,
back.
and Martin Vespi is the one that will be stepping away, and that's why Jean's coming back.
Oh, okay.
And Martin Vespi, as a lot of listeners might know, is the husband of Emma Johansson, who was also on that team for a long time.
Who I bumped into, I don't remember if I told you, Gracie, at the Tour. Yeah,
that would have been great.
Yeah. It was like a reunion of all retired riders. It was crazy.
That's cool.
It was really cool. It was cool watching Loren interact with all of them and me just standing there awkwardly like, I was a big fan of you guys. Oh, I love the DS moves. We'll have to talk about that when we have like a clearer picture of DSs for teams, but there are so many DSs kind of shuffling around teams at the moment. It'll be really, really interesting to see how that pans out. Another big signing, or in my opinion at least, Talita de Jong takes a step back to the World Tour with Human Powered Health on a 2-year deal. I feel like this is a huge get for Human Powered Health. They're a team that is just really, really trying to be, World Tour level, without having many big names on their roster, and having someone like Talita de Jong come onto the team with her experience. I mean, she's been racing for 12 years at this point, on top teams like Rabobank and Live Racing and stuff like that. And she had an incredible year on Lotto Destiny with like a ton of lower level wins, especially at Ardèche at the end of the season. So to come into Human Powered Health with all that experience and knowledge, I feel like she's going to be have a huge impact on the team, like as a team captain, but also brings a lot of potential to what they can do next year in terms of results.
Yeah, I was really excited about this move. It was great to see her so prominent this year in the results, and she had a fantastic year. I mean, for listeners who are newer to the sport, Talita has been around for a really long time. She's a former cross world champion, and she is super talented. It's great to see riders like this that seem to have like a lull in their career, whether that's because of injury or illness, or maybe they've lost the passion or love for the sport, but she's really back. And I think this move is a good move for her. It's not like one of the super teams, so I think she can move into that team and definitely have a really good leadership role with support around her and be able to bounce off a few of the talented riders that team has already acquired.
And next year is a relegation year. So for a team like Human Powered Health that are kind of sitting a little too close for comfort at the bottom of the rankings, having someone like Talita de Jong who had such an incredible year, if she can build on that next year, and I mean, she's only 30, so she'll be 31 next year, totally feasible that she can have a better season next year than she did this year, especially if there's more support and more backing for her in the big races. And I think, yeah, it'll be only a good thing for their hunt for points, which they didn't have a great hunt for points in China. They got some, but probably not as many as they had hoped for. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Can't wait to talk about the relegation next year. Oh, it'll be a year-long conversation.
It's their draft, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, the draft. I checked it before we started recording.
Oh, so sad. Bloody HPH, Human Powered Health, you let me down. Picklet, what is wrong? You chose not to go to the track worlds. I was banking on those points. I woke up so sad on Sunday. I went over to Hannes and I was like, I'm not really winning at much in life. And this was going to be my big win for 2024. And he's
Hey, at least you're on the podium. Matt Deneve bumped me off the podium by like 200 points.
Oh, did he?
Less than 200 points.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, Hannes can tell you that fourth is the worst possible position.
Well, so can Tom's.
Yeah.
I mean, I am like,
you know what? Hannes and Tom's can have a party about that.
they need t-shirts. We almost medaled at the Olympics as their t-shirts.
Good thing they don't listen.
Another really, really interesting transfer. So, and also like there's a conversation to be had around this transfer. Marion Bunel, who won the Tour de l'Avenir this year and off the back of a pretty impressive Tour de France Femme as well, signed for Visma Lease Bike from Saint Michel Mavic Aubert 93. And the interesting thing around this was that there was a whole hubbub about whether or not Saint Michel Mavic Aubert 93 was going to fold at the end of this season. There were pretty close to folding at one point in kind of the same month that we heard that like DNA Racing in the US was folding, L'Ecole Wahoo was folding, and then we heard Saint Michel Mavic was folding. So it was like these three pretty significant continental teams that have been racing in Europe and have been able to, bring riders up into the World Tour through their programs, who like for L'Ecole Wahoo and Saint Michel, they've both wanted more from the sport, and we heard they were folding, and so it made sense that their best rider, Marion Bunel, would find a team, and she found herself on Visma Lease Bike. But they announced recently that they have found a new sponsor, so they're going to be Saint Michel Preference Home Aubert 93 instead of Mavic next year. And with the new sponsor, they've also had to kind of rebuild their team a bit, because when they thought they were folding, a lot of the riders went and signed elsewhere. So they've had to like really try to find a lot of new riders to sign for them, which includes Emily Watts is going to sign for them, Ella Simpson from ARA Skip Capital. They've got Adele Normand, the Canadian rider. They've got riders, from Life Plus Wahoo, from Cofidis. They've really like looked around and found a bunch of new riders to kind of fill their team for next year. And they're one of the riders that has applied for a pro team license as well. So not only did they find a new sponsor, they also are actively hunting to be part of that pro team tier for next year, assumingly, that's not a word, to get an invite to the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift.
I'm really, really happy to see that this team somehow saved the day and are going to stick around. And it's a great opportunity for a few of the riders' names that you just rattled off, to have that opportunity to race in Europe. There's a couple of Aussies, I think you mentioned. So yeah, we need more teams like that. It's a shame a team like Life Wahoo Plus, is that how it goes?
Life Plus Wahoo?
Life Plus Wahoo went away, because that team historically has been a good stepping stone for riders to make the bridge to the bigger teams. And I really think that's the space that they filled, and didn't really need to have World Tour ambition, just in my honest opinion. So I'm hoping that this pro lever tier, that there will be teams that will be happy with staying at that level and being that in between, because you really do need that. Not every team has to be World Tour, and we've spoken about this before. There has to be, the feeder teams into the pro level and then into the World Tour level, and that's just simply how the system has to work for it to be sustainable long term.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand. If there's more pro level or development level teams, there's more of those teams will go to other races, and there's then going to be better of that level races as well. And then every race won't have to be World Tour to just stay on the calendar.
Yeah. 8 teams have applied for the pro team status next year. Arkea B&B, Cofidis, EF Education, Oatly, Laboral, Kucha, Fondacion Euskadi, Saint Michel Aubert, and Voca Vessels. So pretty much the teams that you would maybe expect to want to be at that tier, especially EF Education, Oatly. They've made no secret of the fact that they're targeting one of those World Tour licenses for 2026. And I think, I hope that, 15 World Tour teams is too many. I really think there should be 12 World Tour teams and more pro teams than World Tour teams, and that there should be some kind of balance there. And obviously it's the first year that the pro team tier will be available. And there's a lot of rules and regulations that come along with that pro team license, including minimum wage and specific requirements for staff and insurance and stuff like that. So there's a lot that teams have to pull together to be able to be in that tier. And we know a team like EF Education Oatly already has those things in place, because from the get-go, they were like, wow, well, we want to be World Tour, so we're going to act like a World Tour team. And, but it's a great thing for the sport to have not just World Tour teams that have a mandatory, salary and rules for the professionalism of the team. So I'm so excited that they have implemented this for next year. And the plan was originally 2026, but with the rapid growth of women's cycling, they've bumped it to 2025. So can't wait to see how it goes. And I just wish they would cut 3 World Tour teams, because it just doesn't seem like we have the depth at the moment to have 15 World Tour teams racing.
Maybe that will happen with this relegation system. Who knows?
I think it's still going to be 15, but there's definitely a couple that kind of, don't really deserve to be in that tier, Like if you think about Roland, and if they would even get an invite to the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift if they weren't a World Tour team. We'll see. And Uno X, honestly. I mean, I love Uno X and how they treat their riders and how they function as a team, and how quick their media person is at getting back to me when I ask her questions. But it's, they have definitely not performed at a level to be able to be a World Tour team. And that's half of being a World Tour team, is being able to compete against other World Tour teams. Like, we want all the World Tour teams to kind of be punching at there's always gonna be teams that are better, but we want them to be punching at a similar level, so that we have the best competition in the sport that we can. And at the moment, that's just not the case.
Yep, completely agree. And I think Uno X, going back to my point about teams like Life Plus Wahoo, they were the perfect teams to fill that pro level. So we'll see moving forwards what happens there.
Well, speaking of pro teams, 2 new signings for EF Oatly Cannondale. One of them, Sarah Roy, which is pretty exciting. She'll go to the team from Cofidis, and Henrietta Christie, the Kiwi rider, is going over from Human Powered Health.
Interesting move by Roy. I thought I heard whisperings that she was maybe going to call it quits this year, but I think she wants to give herself one more year or 2. How many years did she sign? 1 or 2?
I think just 1.
Just 1. Because when I spoke to her at the Tour de France briefly, she was just saying how she really didn't have the form that she wanted at that race, and how this year had been tough for her. And I think she's just had a few years like that, where, she made that move to Canyon SRAM a few years back and was hoping to step up into a real leadership role there, as well as a mentorship role. And I think she was good as a mentor in the team, but she didn't get the personal results she was kind of hoping for. So I really hope with EF, I'm guessing the shift there is going to be purely in a mentoring sort of role. she has the ability to be a good lead out still, I think. Not final lead out, but definitely the person winding up the pace, because as Gracie can tell you, her raw power for 1 to 4 minutes is really impressive.
Yeah, she's a super strong rider, and I think she's been pretty disappointed with the last few years. So, we all want to retire on a good note, and I think she's giving herself that opportunity. And of like the EF team from the outside looks pretty fun. So hopefully that she can have a good experience there, find some good form again, and find a nice niche for herself in that squad. And a bit like some of those other teams we've been talking about, they're building themselves up as well into this really nice, exciting team that's going to rival those bigger teams.
Yeah, I think EF also they could really do with an experienced leader on the team who still has that form to be able to be there in the like pointy ends of the classics, for example, and help their younger riders and their riders that could benefit from a leader kind of, or a captain. So I think it's a great move. And for her, she's been pretty vocal about how disappointed she's been the last couple of years of her career. So you never want to go out on a note like that if you can help it. So it totally makes sense that she would want at least one more crack at racing in a new environment. And EF is like the perfect place, I feel like they're such a fun-loving team that is like a very family atmosphere, and they have great equipment, they have great support, but they also don't put a lot of pressure on their riders, and they don't it's a very different atmosphere than Canyon SRAM, we'll just say.
I think back to the point, like if it's going to be her last year, and this goes for all athletes, if you have that choice to end your career the way that you want to end it, not all of us can end as well champions, as we'll get to. But it is nice to finish in a really good environment and to know that you had fun and you made a positive contribution to the team, which I'm sure Roy will do in the end there at EF. And I think she's got a few friends on that team. So that's always nice as well to finish that way.
All right. Bike racing happened over the week. We had the final 2 World Tour races of the year, Tour of Chongming Island, 3-day race, and Tour of Guangxi, the 1-day race, which they changed the course this year, and I think it made for a much more exciting event than in the past. Chongming Island was 3 sprint stages. The first one won by Maylin Dezot of Ceratizit WNT. The final 2 stages were run by Marta Locke of Ceratizit WNT, but the German team also swept the podium on stage 2. It was a hilarious sprint. I was cracking up. And then they also won Guangxi with Sandra Alonso from a 2-person move. So a really, really good week of racing for Ceratizit WNT. After their team name was missing from the list of World Tour teams for next year, and the team clarified on Twitter that it was an admin error, and that they are applying for, there's still a World Tour team next year in theory, but they're working out what went wrong with the UCI. So, they really had a great time in China. And for Marta Locke, who's been on that team for a couple years and been really a staple of the team, to take 2 stage wins and the overall at Chongming Island before she goes to SD Works Pro Time next year was like kind of a great sign off for the team. But I think one of the bigger conversations around these races is just, how do we make these races matter?
Good point. And I'll admit, I didn't watch them. The time zone.
Yeah, the time zone.
But which is cracked at this point too.
Exactly. So like, how do we make it so these races are like races that other teams want to go to? And obviously we talked a bit last week about how the UCI might mandate that World Tour teams go to World Tour races with a couple minor caveats. Like I think for the men, Cadell's isn't mandatory. But the fact that we have these end of year races that are World Tour, and there was really not much to write home about for all 4 days of racing. I feel like it's like a debate for between me and my editor. Like, I write the race report and then he's like, why did you write the race report? And I'm like, well, they're World Tour races. But nobody cares. But like, how do we make people care about these races? Do we move them in the calendar? Like, put them after the Australian races? Like, we've talked about the calendar a bit in the past, but I think that this kind of brings it all up again, because like, what was the point of having these races?
I think that's in my mind, that would be the only way that it works. And that's how Tour of Qatar used to work, was that, I mean, Tour of Qatar was also before we really had the World Tour, Santos Tour Down Under, but it worked. Like, you would get some World Tour riders coming to Australia for a bit of a training block in the beginning of the season, and then going on to Qatar, at least for the Aussies. That was a big thing, and the Australians used to do really well because their form was there. But I think if you're going to try and get more numbers to the races in China, I would say that's the only way it works. But then again, that means that the riders who are doing Tour Down Under and China then go back to Europe and have a very small block before the classics start. And some riders might not like that start to the classic season. Traditionally, that's how we used to do it.
I think nowadays you just wouldn't do all of that like we used to, because riders are more specialized now. You'd have those riders that do TDU and China and then have a bigger training block and not do those early classics. Wait till the Ardennes, and then you've got your pure classics riders doing that block. But I think too, what I would like to see with China is not necessarily getting more of the top teams out there. For sure, a few more would be nice, but like, what a great opportunity for those lower level teams to have their time to shine. A lot of those like Aussie riders, Aussie teams, like the ARA Skip Capital team, even though they won't exist next year as they currently do, was such a great opportunity for them to come and butt heads with European riders, have sprint opportunities. And if it's earlier in the year, that is almost like a great draft pick for the pro teams looking at fresh talent. And they still have enough time to think about signing these riders for next year. Whereas now, everyone's signed pretty much for next year by the time these Chinese races are on. And so for sure, maybe some directors and team managers are looking at all of these riders that we got to see perform well in China that we don't usually get to, but it's too late. They're not going to wait a whole another year to sign these riders, because they're not going to risk that. They're not going to, think, oh, I'm going to keep my eye on so-and-so because she did well in Chongming for 2026. Like, it's kind of a wasted opportunity in that way for those riders that are trying to get scouted.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in having these races on the calendar. Like, the races shouldn't go away, and there's nothing wrong with having a 3-day stage race that ends in 3 bunch sprints, like we have enough climbing year round at this point with all of the, three grand tours that are a week long. There's a lot of climbing heavy races. And so having these races exist is not the problem. It's making it so, we also don't need SD Works coming to these races and having Lorena Wiebes sweep every single day of the race. Like, that's also unnecessary. So I agree, Gracie, like it's such an awesome opportunity, but it's just so poorly placed in the calendar. And I think like even CMAC Ladies Tour had its issues in the calendar this year, and next year it's going to be exactly the same situation with races in late October. It's just too late in the year for there to be bike racing. Like, the calendar should just end with Worlds. And there's places in the calendar to put these races that don't impact existing World Tour events.
I mean, traditionally that's how it used to happen. I think those Italian one-day races have always kind of been there on the calendar. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think, again, when we were chatting about the results from those races, how I said, oh, it's good for the people who are looking for like redemption in the season, also for people chasing points, that I still think there's a place for that. But to fly all the way to China at the end of October, yeah, no one's really interested in terms of watching those races, and then to get the quality riders there or even the teams over. It would be much better placed somewhere earlier in the calendar. And again, like Gracie said, to attract not necessarily the World Tour teams, to have them all there, but to just have a good spread of different teams. And I think that race, correct me if I'm wrong, has like the funding to be able to fly teams over for it.
Yeah, they've got heaps of money.
So there you go. If money's not an issue, then why not move it somewhere else in the calendar and mix it up a little bit? I don't know what the terrain is like there, but it's clearly very flat if it's all sprint stages.
Well, in theory, the UCI is going to completely reshake the calendar for 2026. So I guess we'll have to see if the women's calendar falls into that as well, because
they should listen to our podcast.
But man, they should. Hey, Loren knows don't you know the CEO of ASO?
Yes.
That's close enough to the UCI.
Old mate.
Old mate. Just like slide him
I've got some notes.
Podcast. Be like, we've got great points. I wish we didn't have to keep coming back to the calendar, but it is like such a sticking point at right now, that like, especially right now in like late October, that we're still kind of grappling with having these races that nobody really watched. And you don't want that. Like, you want the World Tour races, you want them to have the viewership and be worth tuning into. But it's just so late in the season that it's just like, yeah, if this happened right after the races in Australia, I guarantee the viewership would double, because people just care at that point. Like, they want to watch bike racing. They are interested in how it's going to tie into the season as a whole. That right now, it's not going to tie into the season as a whole at all, because all the races that mattered and all the points that mattered and everything, it's all wrapped up basically.
And just thinking about the Aussie race scene, of course, because we've got that summer of cycling in Australia, from a purely selfish Aussie perspective, it would be great to see some of those Aussie teams heading over there, having done like the summer of cycling and then going to China to kind of wrap it up, get some World Tour points, or just UCI points. And to Gracie's point, getting seen once more. So, there's a potential, I don't know, we see mid-season transfers happening a little bit now. And there's always that possibility that something like that could happen for these riders, or when they head over to Europe in the middle of the year to do a short block, that DSs that maybe learnt their names during the summer of cycling go, that's that rider who did well at TDU, and they show their face again in China, and here they are again doing something. I think that's important, because there's not enough opportunities for Australians and Kiwis to get seen.
We did talk a bit last week about the new Aussie series coming, the Pro Velo Super League, and they are trying to tag on the back of the Aussie Summer of Cycling, which is really smart. So the China races would be perfect for that reason as well. But we're definitely nitpicking, and we're trying to do blue sky thinking, and that's our job here on this podcast, one of our jobs. And it's fun to like try and make it idealistic, but it's never going to be perfect. And we are in such a golden period in women's cycling, but we're also in a bit of a transition period, and it is tricky. So I'm optimistic that it's going to be a bit better, and we're going to, have better non-World Tour race calendars and all of this stuff. And hopefully some of the calendar might be shuffled around to be better. But yeah, like we're not just whinging for the sake of it. I think we're just trying to envision what we would love to see, but ultimately it would be such a difficult job if whoever has to do that job in the UCI to make it all work. It's almost impossible. But we definitely have some notes.
Yeah, you're never going to make everyone happy. And I mean, like what happened with Ride London, for next year. And we just want to see the sport continue to grow and like build on the momentum we have, because we are in such an incredible place right now with women's cycling, but we want it to continue to get better. And no matter how good we have it right now, there's always room for it to grow and improve. And I think it's a beautiful thing that we have that we're able to see where we came from even 3 years ago and say, yeah, like it's unrecognizable almost, the sport, from where we were 3 years ago, but there's still a lot that we can do to make it better for the riders and for the races and for the viewers and everybody. There's still a lot of improvement that can happen. And the worst possible thing that could happen is we just like become the men's sport.
That's not going to happen. Not on our watch.
But also we don't want any more things for some of those naysayers to like go, see, they don't watch it. And these China races can kind of feed into some of that mentality of like, we're putting all this money into women's cycling and no one's watching. So you do need to optimize for the growth.
And I mean, cross season is here. So, road needs to stop now because cross is here.
Yeah, exactly.
Just stop.
Well, it wasn't the only racing we had over the weekend. It was also the track world championships, which was phenomenal. And we had some really exciting wins. I think like some of the most notable wins is Ali Wollaston won the Omnium, which was a huge, huge victory for her. Lorena Wiebes won her first world title with the scratch event. And the British team won the team pursuit after placing third at the Olympics. I think it was a big win for them to take that. But the most exciting wins, and 100% biased here because we're all moms, but Julie Leth won the Madison with Amelie Dideriksen and also won the points race yesterday or Sunday, which Julie is like one of the coolest human beings on planet Earth. And she had a baby last year or this year and kind of made it her goal to get to the Madison at the Olympics and made it to the Olympics, but then they had a bit of a disappointing performance there. So to kind of wrap up her career, because she's done now after this weekend, to wrap up her career with 2 world titles. I mean, I can't even. I cried. Like I was sobbing yesterday watching the scratch race. Like what an amazing performance from her. And to win the Madison was already a dream come true. And like everything she could have ever wanted apart from that gold medal from Paris. But then to get her own individual world championship title in the points race, I mean, it's just like, yeah, what a way to end it.
Fairy tale ending. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. I don't know. I have no other words for that other than just beautiful. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, me either. Always been such a massive Julie fan. She's obviously a great bike rider, great teammate, great mentor, but like we all probably know her a little bit personally, and she's just the loveliest person, such a caring person, so funny, but like she's just worked so hard over the years. And it's like, yeah, I just reiterate what you guys have already said, but fairy tale, but so deserved. And we're just so stoked for her.
Yeah, she's so cool. Like just such a cool person. And more moms just doing badass mom stuff.
Oh, it's inspiring. It's motivating.
You want to get back on the bike, Gracie?
Yes, I do. I fantasize about it all the time. I'm like, I wonder if Jericho would take me back. They need another leader. I'm joking. I am joking. But seriously.
You could go back to mountain biking. Yeah, that'd be cool. For fun. Do some fun mountain bike races.
I'm happy to do stuff for fun, but yeah, the competition days are over.
For me, that seems so far away. Like just
racing?
No, like being able to compete at a high level is just such an obscure thought now that like I just can't actually imagine it. I can't imagine being able to put out those numbers anymore. Like it just doesn't compute at all.
You can't imagine it? I'm sitting here on my Zwift ride pushing like 120 watts and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm flying.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah, you really have to readjust your frame of mind,
It's like
your
the
expectations. My heart rate goes so high if I go up the tiniest little hill at the moment. But that's okay. I'm still out there. It's great.
You're killing it. You're killing it. I miss the adrenaline. I miss like the adrenaline of like standing on the start line and like being in the bunch and like, yeah. And the fun moments in the bunch. Like it's not all about racing. Like I remember La Course 2019, I told Mariana Voss a joke mid race and she laughed. It's like one of the highlights of my career.
That's a good highlight.
10 minutes later, my director was like, Abby, you need to attack now. And I was trying to attack and I was like sprinting as fast as I could possibly go. And I looked to the side and the peloton was going the same speed. And I was like,
I was just stretching my legs, just stretching my legs.
just out here, you know, doing the best I can.
The famous alley stalker attack. Couldn't
exactly.
sprint. Could not sprint.
No, me and her sprinting against each other would probably be the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life. It would just be all limbs flying.
And Carly Taylor,
no
throw her in the mix there too. Max
Love you,
power,
Carly.
600 watts.
You think they still tell jokes in the peloton? They're all so serious.
I feel like it's a different era. Yeah. Maybe like on the 160, like, you know, in the middle of the Tour de France or something, when it's a really super long stage and the bunch bunches up a little bit, I think people would chat then.
Not in the Tour. They're too stressed in the Tour. They're all stressed. Walking around the start village in the Tour, you're like, man, you're all too stressed. Maybe like if they make Milan San Remo 200 kilometers next year, there'll be a bunch of jokes thrown around. Well, we can wrap it up. We will be back, but for the meantime, this is our last group episode for a little while. We're going to have some really exciting interview, like conversation style podcasts coming up. The first one next week, I honestly cannot wait for everyone to hear it. Tilda Price and I sat down with Tobin Heath, the football player, to talk about women's cycling and women's sport in general. And it was just an awesome conversation. So a couple conversation episodes coming, and then we'll be back at some point before the end of 2024 to talk more about the season as a whole, and we'll reach out for listener questions in the lead up to that. And at some point we got to get Tills and Matt Denif on the pod to talk about the draft, I guess. Shut up, Loren. You still got second.
I got second, man, but that's not first. I was so close.
Gracie's the only person who can complain here. But look at her. She's totally happy.
No, Gracie actually achieve things as a bike rider. She's like...
You're living vicariously through your draft team?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you know, that was my team. I was those riders in the race. Man, I racked up some wins this year.
If you let me down one more time, I swear.
You're getting cut mid-season next year. No, it was fun. And then it was very stressful.
Do you guys have any non-bike obsessions this week to end out the pod?
You can go first,
Cooking?
Gracie.
Mine's not very exciting. I have started reading. I've read a little bit and it's so nice to finally read a book again. But I'm not obsessed with that yet. I've just started a new TV series and it's witchy. I love witchy stuff, any kind of magic stuff. And it's Agatha All Along on Disney.
Oh, I was going to ask. Is it Agatha? Yeah.
I've only watched 2 episodes, but I'm already in. And I haven't even read the comics or anything. But it's fun to do something new concept. And yeah, witches stuff is cool.
I love witch
You
content.
started watching it at the right time because the moon this month was bonkers.
I watched
but
Nobody
the cast
Wants
of that
This.
show is like so good.
Yeah, good cast.
That was good. What's your
Did
obsession?
you enjoy it, Lauren?
Oh, I loved it. I've told Hannes he has to watch it, so then we can watch season 2 together.
I hope they are faster with season 2 than Netflix is with literally any other show that they make.
I think they have to with this type of series. Like, you really can't leave it too long.
And it's easier to churn out than Stranger Things.
Mm.
My obsession is fall. Noted hater of the summer. I am just so happy that it's fall now, and Went on a lot of walks this weekend with Lila, picking up leaves. She had to bring a bag of leaves to school this morning, which hilarious. But so we went out leaf hunting over the weekend and found some really great ones. But there was also like a festival in our town where we're living, in Andorra, and they had like crafts for all the kids and different animals like horses and goats and sheep and cows, and my favorite thing of all, chestnuts, roasted chestnuts, like literally just chestnuts roasted over an open fire, and they like put them in a newspaper cone, and you just like walk around eating chestnuts, and it's just the best thing ever. So I love fall. I'm so happy it's fall. And we got our first snow on Friday.
Oh,
and
wow.
So all the mountains were like snow capped, and the leaves are falling, and it's just, the temperature is perfect. The sun is still shining. I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy it's not summer anymore.
I am not happy that it's fall. I will tilt my camera.
Sorry, Lauren.
Not obsessed with the fall here because it's not beautiful at the moment. But I am obsessed with a big life moment. Is I think that Harry will have his final treatment this week.
Whoa.
So that's a big moment for us. For those who don't know, my son has been having treatment for cancer the past year and 4 months or so. And then the doctors told us last week that, and it's so random, they've told us this so late, but that they think that this Thursday, so in 2 days when you listen to this, will be his last intravenous treatment, which is really big because that means that we're basically at the finish line. We are at the finish line, one finish line. So yeah, I think that's a big moment for us. So I'm pretty obsessed with being done with it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
So
my heart feels things right now. I'm so pleased to hear that, Lauren.
yeah.
You've done so well this past however many months, 16 months. It's been really tough, but you've been awesome, and we love you so much. So that's such fantastic news.
Thank you. I'm trying not to get emotional about it, but yeah, it will be good to be done with this. And then my obsession leading into that will be going home to Australia, not with Harry, of course. That's probably not good for his immunity, but with my youngest. So I'll get to see my parents and all my old friends. My best friend, Carly Taylor, is going to come hang out with me on the Gold Coast, and it's going to be a really good time.
Some good life stuff.
Yeah, good life
You deserve it. Well, if that's not the best way to end a podcast, I don't know what is. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back in a couple weeks. But until then, we've got Tobin Heath, Elise Shabby, Anna Henderson. We're going to talk to Georgie Howe, Lauren and I. That's going to be sweet. So a lot of really fun conversations coming up. So stay tuned.